Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Tactics video where I'm going to check out the performance of 28 brave Astra Militarum commanders at the London Grand Tournament. This massive tournament had 734 players, played in London, UK, and I couldn't get to it personally because I was away overseas at a wedding, but we've got a lot of great data here. And one thing to quickly note before we get into it is massive thanks to one of my patrons, Guardsman Copeland, for pulling together the raw data of this, because obviously quite a heavy exercise to be doing, but some really cool insights to draw from this. So spreadsheet time. Again, you can see I've got here all of the 28 players' names, their placing of the 734 players, number of wins, number of losses, respective win rate. And then you can see, as we look down here, you can see all the units, and I've tried to sort of color code it by headquarter style units. Back in the 9th edition referrals, let's call those like light characters, battle line or infantry units, etc. So I tried a bit of a differentiation there from an eye viewing point of view. And then I've got basically the number of times the unit was included in the 28 lists. So you can see 24 times Lord Solo was included. And then also, for example, say there are 25 instances of a 10-man Cadian shock troop unit being included across the 28 lists. Yeah. Now, some key headlines before I get into this is, unfortunately, none of our 28 commanders placed in the top 10, or the top 10%, so not placing 73 spots or above. Now, there were 28 players, as I said, of 734, that's 4% or roughly 3.8%, so I don't know if that's good or bad, but about 4% of all players played Guard. And the interesting thing is I'm fairly confident that basically all data sheets were included, excluding 4 drawed units, and the only key one which is missing, that doesn't have representation, was the Valkyrie. I'm pretty sure. You can see, for example, that there are some of the Bane Blade family, the Bane Sword, Shadow Sword, and Storm Sword, but not the Bane Blade, for example. Now, as far as looking at this, I think the key things jumped out to me is that, firstly, Sentinel spam doesn't exist anymore. You can see that there is, if we go to Sentinels, the single Scout Sentinel is the most popular. 38 times it was included. Obviously you can take a max of 3 for individuals, but no longer are we seeing the Sentinel spam, which I personally played a bit, didn't do that well, but I used them in blobs of 3, so that's gone. Also, the artillery spam lists don't really exist. So you can see the Manticore Basilisk is popular, 20 and 18 times. But the Medusa Carriage Battery and the Urshinet Carriage Battery were only taken sparsely across the board. So it really feels like post-balanced data slate, the composition of Guard lists has definitely changed. Now, as I said, it's quite interesting to see basically everything represented. So let's just go our way through here and have a look at what was most popular. So Lord Solar, 24 times he was included, which shows he's a very popular unit. And I've actually got a couple of breakdowns in a second which show you the key winners, or the blokes who placed the highest, what they brought. But you can see across the board, everyone's taking Lord Solar. A lot of people are taking Asala Creed. Cadian Castle are not very popular. Death Corps Marshal, surprisingly, not super popular, but super popular. Death Corps Rider, Squadron Commander, cool, someone tried it. Don't think they did that well. Now, the Tank Commander was quite interesting to me, and that feels like that maybe the shoot on death mechanic that I dismissed is actually quite good. Hitting on 2 pluses, right, going off on 2 pluses if the model dies. Interestingly, you can see the Platoon Command Squad is more popular than the Cadian Command Squad, so saving you 5 points. Interestingly, Iron Hand Strachan pops up, but then Gaunt's Ghosts are certainly quite popular, 12 of 24. So seeing some good representation there. So yeah, I think interesting to see Lord Solo as an obvious, Asala Creed pretty obvious, but me personally, Tank Commanders, I've not something I've spammed before. As we get into the secondary characters, you can see poor old Sly Marbo is only brought once, and someone actually brought Sergeant Harker, which is awesome. Obviously not doing that well, but in a sec we'll see. Regimental Engines here did come a couple of times, but nothing too crazy as far as the secondary characters are concerned. Okay, battle line units. Now, 10-man infantry squads, popular. Cadian Shock, very popular. I think Objective Sticky actually is quite a good mechanic. I've used it in a few games, and the wording is written that at the end of your command phase, if you hold it, but you have if you held it, the next command phase until it's taken off, you still hold it, something like that. So what that means is if you held it in a command phase and you die in a subsequent phase after that, you still hold it. So if they get blown up and killed off the objective, you still hold it. So actually it's quite helpful. Then Death Core of Krieg, actually, the big man blobs, so 15 of them across the thing, and you can see, for example, the chap here, Aiden, he brought 5 of them, which is awesome. Relatively popular. And then Catagen Jungle Fighters, actually quite popular now. So at 55 points, pre-game bundle of 6 inches. You bring enough of them, you're saving yourself 10 points versus Death Core, I think. Suddenly that ladders up. Okay. As we then look at like the old-fashioned elites, as we call them, you can see Tempestus Scions, the 5-man blobs are popular for mission play. The Bulgrim blobs of 6 were very common, quite common. And then, Scout Sentinels, I spoke about that. The Hellhound make a bit of an appearance. And when we look at the heavy armor, the Rogel Dawn is popular. The Demolisher is super popular, and you can see basically nothing else really gets spoken about. The Exterminator Autocannon does get seen a bit, which is interesting. And then as we go to, the artillery, Basilisk Manticore still popular. You can see someone brought a Cyclops, Rapier Laser Battery. Transports are somewhat popular, not as popular as I think. And then some absolute gods are bringing some heavy armor: the Bane Sword, Shadow Sword, Storm Sword, Macarius Vulcan, and the Praetor block of resin, multiple rocket launcher. 2 Vindicare Assassins and a Calidus Assassin. So this is what everybody brought, yeah? That's what everybody brought, the 28 players. Now, if we then go into what did the best performing players take. Okay, so what I've done is you can see the players who got 4 wins and above, or 4 wins, full stop, and 3 wins, exactly 3 wins, what they took. Now, the number 1 player, the best player who got the highest spot was a chap called David Gaylard, a Kiwi fellow, lives in London. He came 81st, so very close to the top 10%, but obviously still he's nowhere near the top 10, obviously. Now, out of interest, the top 10 was a bit more varied than we would have thought it would be, but even then there's one consistency, as you'll see. So the first player was a chap called Liam, Chaos Space Marines, Aldari, Chaos Space Marines, Aldari, Raven Wing, Aldari, Dark Angels, Chaos Space Marines, and Chaos Knights. So Aldari certainly are still doing very, very well. And these are some of Europe's best players, obviously, to place this highly at a tournament this size. Including, I know Manny Chin is really good, Vic Vijay is really good as well. But Aldari is still a common, but not... Well, they still are dominating, but I think it's not as bad as it was before. So, as I said, the number 1 best player was David Gaylard, placing 81st. You can then see a guy called Jamie, 119, 112. There's some other guys down the end. A guy called Martin Cooper, 105. Michael Costello, who's a coach from Vanguard Tactics, coming 107th. And you can see some other blokes doing very well, such as Rowan and Stuart. Now, the thing is to place this high in a tournament this size is absolutely amazing. This is really competitive, this scene. And I know I've seen Michael Costello at a couple of tournaments in Factorum in Warmiston. He's a really lovely chap, and he's a very, very good player. So I think the key thing is that if Mike Costello and David Gaylard, who are very, very good players, aren't posting the top 10% of all players, that's quite telling of where the faction is, yeah? Now, of interest of all of this capped up together, the combined win rate for all of these 28 players is 47%. Now, that feels a lot better than what it was before, yeah? And 47 feels pretty good. But I think the fact we didn't get anybody in the top 10% is pretty telling of the faction. And, picking out on Mike and also David, there's some very, very strong players to be getting 4 zeros. So if we go back to what did those who got 4 wins, 1 loss take? Okay, Lord Solar, Asala Creed, okay, Def Corps Marshal, Tank Commander span. If we go straight to David's list, so you can see he's got Lord Solar, he's got 3 Tank Commanders. So clearly they obviously do something good, like Shoot on Def. You can then see Gaunt's Ghosts, relatively popular. And you can see also David's got Gaunt's Ghosts as well. Primaris Psyker, Regimental Attaché pops up. You can then see there's infantry squads, Orcadian Shock, but it's jungle fighters popping up again. Now, who of the top dudes got jungle fighters? Because I think Martin, yeah, that guy there took 3 of them. Okay, but it feels like, and you can see with the blokes who got 3-2 wins, it's quite popular. So definitely, there's obviously some merit that, I guess, even Deathcore, which are quite resilient, you just want cheap units on the board. Yeah, 55 points pre-game battle move, bit of opportunity movement. It does help. You can then see they take the upper echelon took some Tempesta Scions, Bulgrim squads, etc. So Scout Sentinels also popular, and then I know Manticores are popping up. Chimeras were popping up as well. See, David took a couple of them, and I do know as we look, one absolute trooper took a Shadow Sword, and you can see also in the 3 wins and over, someone bought a Storm Sword as well. Storm Sword. So if it's from this, it's almost like what are the units that are best performing, and if these blokes had taken some of the better, very strong players, then definitely something for us to learn on. So, Asala Creed, Lord Solar, tank commanders, then a platoon command squad maybe, some jungle fighters, Bulgrim squads of 6, and I know David's a big fan of those, and some other players are, because -1 incoming damage, 4+ invul save, 3 wounds I think, and a 6-up feel no pain. They will hang around. Scout Sentinels still obviously quite good with a reroll of 1 to hit, and you can ignore the indirect penalty. Rogel Dawns popping up. The Demolisher Siege Cannon. Interesting, you can see that the middle tier winners, they were very popular, but in the upper echelon, none of them brought that. But then, Manticores are popular. Even Basilisks aren't that popular, but Chimera. So it's, I don't know. It feels pretty balanced. Like people it feels like they're probably bringing a real combination of things, and I think definitely Guard have enough tools to do a lot of different things. You can sort of play a lot of janky games with all the relevant units, but you probably have to be quite skilled to do very well. And obviously, as I said, these guys who had 4 wins and one loss are very skilled players, so they can obviously still navigate Astra Militarum to a very competitive position, but it looks like we're not getting into the upper echelons of the top 10% or top 10. Now, next thing I did is I then worked out to get a bit more feel, to sort of see, if maybe there was some sort of just favourable matchups. So you can see here that I don't think this is in a particular order, but you can see David played Demons, Aldari, Flavors of Spacemen, Flavour of Spacemen, and World Eaters. Now, I'm not sure if this is the identical order. I think it is the order of the units armies he played against, but you can probably say these aren't easy matchups. Like, it's not like David played, Adeptus Mechanicus over and over again. He played some very tough armies. Now, who else have I got? I got basically the guys who did, top 3, place it below 100. So then, this fella here, Rowan, he played Grey Knights, Tau, terrible. Aldari, Votan are very good, and Aldari. So again, he's not having an easy time, just jogging in and playing, other armies. Stuart, he had against Space Marines, Death Guard, who are quite good, Chaos Space Marines, Black Templars, who I play a lot and they're very good, and Genestealer Cults. I don't know how good they are. So I wanted to sort of, truly be quite pragmatic and see if these guys had just had easy matchups, but they didn't, by the looks of things. So I think, as I said, we're obviously doing okay. To not get in the top 10% is worrying. Not getting the top 10 is, it's pretty hard. You can see it's dominated by Aldari and Chaos Space Marines. But I think there is some hope here. I think we probably have to temper our expectations. Personally, I don't want to make excuses about not playing that well, but I kind of know that Guard aren't probably going to be an easy win army at all, and that's okay. You can see 47% win rate. All these 20 odd chaps come playing together, so doing pretty well. A good mix of units been taken, either across all the players or some of the best players. I think there are some lessons. I said, Lord Solar, Asala Creed, tank commanders, Catagen jungle fighters, Scout Sentinels, obvious. And then it is like Manticores, Chimeras for some transports, Bulgrams, I think it was the other one, Bulgrams. And then that's basically it. Yeah, so, you know, hopefully it's interesting, this. I found it quite interesting to see how we perform, to be quite pragmatic. This is a huge amount of data, and I dare say GW will be looking at this with such a huge player base and making some real new decisions for the next balance status, whenever that is due. Quickly, for those in the US or other countries, this is in the UK, it's fixed terrain placement. There's no player placed. So you come into the tournament with the terrain very, very clearly defined. So it's a bit less good, or a bit less favourable for shooting armies. I do believe, having played player placed terrain a few times, it can be very good for shooting armies. You can certainly position the terrain in your favour, but in the UK it's all player play. So dare say for shooting armies it's a bit tougher. And here, let me think. So yeah, hopefully interesting. If one of your names is here, I'd love to hear from you. You're just a set of numbers in front of me now, which is cool. But yeah, hopefully it was interesting. Cool to see how we're going. Bit of a statistical, pragmatic approach, and being quite honest with ourselves. But yeah, so any comments, questions, let me know. Once again, massive thanks to Guardsman Coquelin, who pulled together all the data, did all the heavy lifting, you know, looking at what Aidan brought and putting down all the units here. Then I added a couple more conditional formatting and made it look quite pretty for your viewership. So yeah, any questions, comments, let me know. And if you want to support me, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing. Joining my Patreon platoon, or simply watching any of my other YouTube videos. I cover everything Astra Militarum, from the hobby aspect, tactics, like we're looking at here, or sometimes lore videos as well. Let's get your bayonet sharp, let's go unoiled, faith from the Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Tank Commander Mitchell. Lieutenant Burke Nielsen. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill. Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen. Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin. Conscript England, Gillian, Goodwin, King.